This man spoke with every parent of Uvalde victim to make them a personalized casket. Syrian archaeologist Khaled al-Assad, who devoted his life to the excavation and restoration of Palmyra, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. He was beheaded by ICE after refusing to disclose the location of ancient artifacts. Despite a month of torture, he died a hero of heritage protection. A statue in Istanbul to honor Tombali, a famous stray cat. He used to sit in this position and watch passers-by. Former President Jimmy Carter, then 95 and having just suffered a fall and 15 stitches, traveled to Nashville to help build porches for 21 Habitat for Humanity houses 2019. Preserved Edo period neighborhood in Japan. We rushed our dog to the emergency 24-hour vet after a dat at the beach because she was acting skittish about her tail. Was it broken? 1:02 AM X-ray later, and the vet says she has happy tail syndrome, meaning she wagged it so hard on her beach day that it was sore. This board should be placed everywhere. Don't waste food. Take all you can eat, but eat all you take. Yesterday's wastage was 45 kilograms, which can feed 180 people. The bee lives less than 40 days, visits at least 1,000 flowers, and produces less than a teaspoon of honey. For us it is only a teaspoon of honey, but for the bee it is a life. Thank you, bees. Alice Roosevelt with her dog Leo. She smoked cigarettes in public, chewed them, placed bets with bookies, rode in cars with men, stayed out late partying, and kept a pet snake named Emily Spinach, which she often wore wrapped around one arm and took to parties. Her father, President Theodore Roosevelt, once said of her, "I can either run the country or I can attend to Alice, but I cannot possibly do both." 1902. Back in 2017, a 10-year-old Florida girl fought off an alligator attack by sticking her 2 fingers up the 9-foot-long beast's nose, which forced the animal to open its mouth to breathe. As it did so, the little girl freed her leg and escaped. She had learned the trick from Gatland. Minutes before the 2004 tsunami hit Thailand, a 10-year-old girl warned her parents it was coming. While on the beach, she recognized the warning signs of a tsunami as she had learned them in geography class just 2 weeks earlier. She is credited with saving the lives of hundreds of tourists. A modern Egyptian man taking a selfie with a 2,000 years old portrait of an Egyptian man during the Roman era. Farmers arrest the sheriff who was attempting to evict a woman from her farm on behalf of an insurance company. Michigan, 1952. This is exempt property from seizure. This is a widow's homestead. Running out of children due to the low birth rates, a school in South Korea is opening their doors and allowing illiterate grandmothers to enroll, so they can also learn to read. Sorely missed Victorian slang. 8. Jiggle mug. Always smiling. 7. Butch the pot. Pour the tea. 6. Got the malts. Temporary sadness. 5. Tight as a boiled owl. Drunk. 4. Poked up. Embarrassed. 3. Sauce box. The mouth. 2. Cupid's kettle drums. Bests. 1. Not up to nut. Unwell. Jessica Mir is a physiologist, marine biologist and NASA astronaut who speaks English, Swedish and Russian. After completing her postdoctoral research, she taught at Harvard Medical School, and she has also studied penguins in Antarctica. She was launched up into the ISS in 2019, and she was one of the first women to perform an all-female spacewalk. Did you know? Stephen Russell escaped from prison by using laxatives to fake the symptoms of AIDS. He then called the prison, posing as a doctor, asking for prisoners interested in an experimental treatment, and volunteered. Once out of Texas, he sent a death certificate to the prison stating he had died. In 2015, a woman named Joy Milne claimed she could smell Parkinson's disease. To test her, doctors gave her 12 t-shirts to smell. 6 of them were from Parkinson's patients. She correctly identified the 6 shirts, but also chose one from the control group. 8 months later, that person was diagnosed with Parkinson's. A quote from the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. Jefferson being the American founding father that physically wrote down the founding documents. I'm not advocate for frequent changes in laws and constitutions, but laws and institutions must go hand in hand with the progress of the human mind. As that becomes more developed, more enlightened, as new discoveries are made, new truths discovered, and manners and opinions change. With the change of circumstances, institutions must advance also, to keep pace with the times. We might as well require a man to wear still the coat which fitted him, when a boy civilized society, to remain ever under the regimen of their barbarous ancestors. On night 11, a guide dog named Roselle led a group of people including her blind donor down more than 1,463 steps to safety before the North Tower collapsed. She only stopped to give kisses to calm a woman who was having a panic attack. Self-made millionaire Harris Rosen adopted a Florida neighborhood called Tangelo Park, cut the crime rate in half, and increased the high school graduation rate from 25% to 100% by giving everyone free daycare and all high school graduates scholarships. Pistol dueling was a sport at the 1906 and 1908 Olympics. In 1908, the sport involved 2 male competitors, wearing protective equipment for the hands, face and torso, firing at each other with pistols loaded with wax bullets. When Hawking faked his own death, during an interview with Stephen Hawking, the camera operator yanked a cable causing an alarm, and Hawking to slump forward, worried they had killed him. Everyone rushed over to find Hawking giggling at his own joke. The alarm was from an office computer losing power. Andrew Myrick, a storekeeper on a Minnesota Native American reservation, told starving natives to eat grass if they were hungry. He was found dead on the first day of the Dakota War of 1862, with grass stuffed in his mouth. During the 1936 Olympics, 2 Japanese pole vaulters tied for second, after declining to compete against another. Shuhei Nashida won silver and Suooi won bronze. Upon returning to Japan, they cut the medals in half and joined them together to make friendship medals. A photo taken in the early 1950s during a routine military expedition to the Chukchi Peninsula. Shooting a bear does not make you a badass. Feeding a bear while her cub hugs your leg makes you a badass. A family photo with the Northern Lights became a 1 in a million shot after a shooting star flew in the background. This family decided to lose weight together. No obstacle is too big to overcome, if only you believe in yourself. The Pureotajan labor who did what others thought to be impossible. After his wife was denied water by upper caste people, Indian laborer Purotajan managed to dig her a well in under 40 days and ended up discovering a water source capable of sustaining his entire village. When Pope Francis visited Japan, he was gifted a custom anim robe, which he wore. This interesting plant is native to Australia. A local newspaper manager snapped this picture of children escaping the shooting in Texas. Today I learned that the largest creature on the planet can barely swallow a grapefruit. Myth: the blue whale can swallow a whole car. Truth: a grapefruit is the biggest thing this whale can swallow. This is the Swedish warship Vasa. It sank in 1628 and was recovered from the ocean in 1961, almost completely intact. This is the only remaining intact ship from the 1600s. This ship is housed in the Vasa Museum in Stockholm, Sweden. In 2006, a man in Portland, Oregon hired a hitman to kill his 51-year-old wife Susan Kunhausen. She ended up killing the hitman with her bare hands. When she had her hands on his neck, she asked him, "Tell me who sent you here, and I will call you a ducking ambulance." to collect taxes. Christian IV of Denmark asked captains of ships crossing the Øresund to estimate the value of their cargo, which was applied as the tax base without further audit. But the king also claimed the right to buy the entire cargo at exactly that price. A Romanian-born Israeli and American scientist, engineer, professor, teacher and a Holocaust survivor, Liviu Librescu, held the door of his classroom shut during the Virginia Tech shooting. Although he was shot through the door, Librescu managed to prevent the gunman from entering the classroom until most of his students had escaped through the windows. He saved 22 of his 23 students. Solar panels being installed over canals in India. It prevents water evaporation, doesn't use extra land and keeps solar panels cooler. China is spending $3 billion to build panda bear-shaped solar farms in order to get more young people interested in renewable. The sun at midday makes these bottles look like they are in a badly rendered video game. 16-year-old Indian Grandmaster Pragnanand Harameshbabu defeated world chess champion Magnus Carlsen, who is a 31-year-old Norwegian chess grandmaster, for the second time in just 3 months. If I birthed 6 kids, I'm gonna get 6 kids out. Supermom Emma Skoll saved all of her 6 kids from their burning home, running room to room, floor to floor, even though she was bleeding and losing skin. Hair burned like coal. She kept going. Emma got 93% burn injuries, yet still survived. A hero. In the cases Deshani vs. Winnebago and Town of Castle Rock vs. Gonzales, the Supreme Court has ruled that police agencies are not obligated to provide protection of citizens. Police have no duty to protect you. Federal court affirms yet again. One of the rarest horse breeds in the world, Akhil-Teak horses have unique hair structure that gives them a metallic sheen, which is why they are nicknamed golden horses. India's Kailasa temple, carved from a single massive rock, is at least 1200 years old. I train these clever creatures to save victims trapped in collapsed buildings after earthquakes. We kit them out with a rat backpack and train them to trigger a switch when they find a victim and come back for a tasty treat. These were all released within 44 days of each other in 1991. Also known as Black Death, Henry Johnson was an African-American hero who single-handedly beat back a German assault during World War I. Despite being stabbed, shot and hit with grenade shrapnel totaling 21 severe injuries, he managed to kill/injure 24 German soldiers and rescued a member of his unit. He was the first American soldier to receive France's highest award for bravery, Croix de Guerre, and in 2015, the White House also awarded him the Medal of Honor in a posthumous ceremony. In the UK you can find wavy walls. Wavy walls require fewer bricks to build than normal walls, but only the most experienced bricklayers can make them. Plants have been grown in lunar soil for the first time ever. Arabidopsis thaliana plants, commonly known as the thale cress, are shown sprouting from lunar soil. Borneo, a biologist is looking for snakes in a pond. Orangutan thinks the man is stuck, reaches out a hand to help him climb to safety. Dinosaurs roamed Earth for such a long period of time that dinosaurs' fossils existed while dinosaurs were still alive. The original patent from 1891 for a toilet paper roll shows the correct rolling direction, in case you ever doubted. When 3 men with machetes slipped into an orphanage at night, a man named Omari decided to take on the attackers single-handedly. He got slashed in the face with the machetes, but ultimately saved the orphans. His story helped raise over $80,000 for the orphanage. This is what is kept inside every police car in the Netherlands. If you look closely, you'll see 2 teddy bears. Dutch police are required to keep them, to give away to children who are experiencing difficult times. In the 1980s, NASA scientist Lonnie Johnson got the idea for a water gun after her shot a stream of water across the room during a pump project. After testing a prototype out with his 7-year-old daughter, he made millions debuting the iconic Super Soaker. 123-year-old 1 cent I received in my change today. Polish doctor Eugene Lozowski saved 8,000 Jewish during the Holocaust by injecting dead typhus cells into them, allowing them to test positive for typhus despite being healthy. Germans were afraid of the highly contagious disease and refused to deport them to concentration camps. A mother once called into PBS, asking if Mr. Rogers could send an autograph to her daughter. She was suffering from seizures and said to have brain surgery. When Mr. Rogers heard about it, he flew to see her in the hospital. He even brought his puppets along. MS-13 gang members locked inside El Salvadoran gang cages. These overcrowded 12 by 15 cages were designed to be 72-hour holding cells for common criminals and the rival gangs, but many of the individuals have been imprisoned for over a year. Staircase designed by Leonardo da Vinci, 1560. When Sweden plays against Denmark, the scoreboard will display Sweden. The unused letters remaining are Denmark. Ruby Bridges, the first African American child to desecrate an all-white school in Louisiana, is alive and only 67 years old. Chinese doctors vow to 11-year-old boy who chose to donate his organs to save lives after losing his battle to brain cancer. 78 years ago today on D-Day, June 6, 1944, James M. Doohan of Vancouver led D Company of Royal Winnipeg Rifles ashore at Juno Beach. He would be shot 6 times, survive and go on to become Scotty on Star Trek. African American mathematician Katherine Johnson, who calculated Earth orbits and rocket trajectories for NASA's early space missions, helped to put astronaut John Glenn into the Earth's orbit in 1962. She was so skilled that Glenn had asked specifically for her and had refused to fly unless the calculations were verified by her. Abandoned mansion in Irish forest. In South Korea, some stores package their bananas together in various ripeness stages, so you can eat them over several days without them going brown. They call them one-a-day bananas. This is the cleverest thing I think I've ever seen. Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, stroked Queen Elizabeth's leg above the knee during a state breakfast in 1961. The Queen was quite astonished. Known as Pelia burrows, these enormous tunnels can measure up to 2,000 feet long and over 6 feet tall. These urge tunnels, found across southern Brazil, were dug by giant prehistoric sloths. Sears once sold homes through their catalog. These kits included everything a home required, including plumbing, heating and wiring. Parts arrived by train to the buyer, who then had to assemble it themselves. Many of these houses still stand today. 1960. 2016. Why were chainsaws invented? When babies couldn't fit through, or they would get stuck in the pelvis, parts of bone and cartilage were removed to create more space for the baby. However, in the 1780s, in a bid to make the removal of the pelvic bone easier and less time consuming, 2 doctors named John Aitken and James Jeffrey invented the chainsaw. Queen Victoria, the second longest serving queen and ruler of the British Empire, drank a shot of opium every day, carried cocaine chewing gum, and smoked Mary Jane to ease her stomach pains. The Terminator films are not really about the human race getting killed off by future machines. They're about us losing touch with our own humanity and becoming machines, which allows us to kill and brutalize each other. Cops think of all non-cops as less than they are. Stupid, weak and evil. They dehumanize the people they are sworn to protect and desensitize themselves in order to do that job. When sperm whales need a nap, they take a deep breath, dive down about 45 feet, and arrange themselves into perfectly level, vertical patterns. No one knew whales slept vertically until a 2008 study documented the behavior, and no one captured really good photography of it in the wild until 2017. The size of a fully grown Australian saltwater crocodile compared to a human. A New York City police officer comes face to face with Ming, or 350-pound tiger secretly living in an apartment in Harlem, 2003. The Ark of Bukhara, a fortress located in Uzbekistan, built 1,500 years ago. This is the only existing photo of Chernobyl taken on the morning of a nuclear accident. The heavy grain is due to the huge amount of radiation in the air that began to destroy the camera film the second it was exposed. Today is the 101st anniversary of the Tulsa massacre, where upwards of 300 black Tulsans were murdered, buried in mass graves, and dumped in nearby rivers by white Tulsans. Running the Nero out of Tulsa June 1, 1921. A divorcing couple dividing their Beanie Baby collection in court, 1999. The good news is unicorns were real. The bad news is they were hideous. An unaltered image of a rarely captured aerial phenomena called a red sprite, which only lasts a few milliseconds. Credit Stephen Hummel. A 2,000-year-old Thracian chariot with horse skeletons found in Karanovo, Bulgaria. Archaeological complex village of Karanovo. This tadpole never evolved to a frog. A California teacher teaching the physics of surfing, 1970. Fisher Island, the richest zip code in America with the average income of $2.2 million. Salman Khan, the founder of Khan Academy, taken by Annie Leibovitz in 2014. Joseph Ducreux (1735–1802) was a French painter who is known primarily for his unorthodox self-portraits. The Nees called them damnthatsinteresting, the Night Witches. This was the all-women 588th Night Bomber Regiment of Soviet Air Force under Marina Ratskova. These women dropped 3,000 tons of bombs over the Nees during World War II. An urban highway in Dusseldorf, Allemania proves how it's never too late to turn back on a mistake. Dusseldorf, Allemania, 1990, 2019. Dr. Amanda Hess from Kentucky was preparing to give birth to her baby in the hospital when she heard that another expectant mother was also close to giving birth. Since the doctor on call was still on his way, she stepped in and handled the delivery. She then went back to her ward and gave birth to her baby. Man wrongfully converted fights for his own life sentence and helped other inmates as well. In 1991, Isaac was wrongfully convicted of being a dog kingpin and received a life sentence. During his appeal process, Isaac served as his own attorney and a prison paralegal. He helped win reduced sentences for at least 20 inmates and, while appealing his own sentence, extracted a confession from an officer, which led to the cops who had arrested him and the judge who converted him being locked up. After he was freed, Isaac went to law school, received his degree, and was sworn in as a licensed attorney. In 1963, the Bronx Zoo had an exhibit called The Most Dangerous Animal in the World. It was a mirror. This is Rick Allen. He's the drummer of the British hard rock band Def Leppard, active 1977 to now, and he lost an arm in a car accident in 1984. He spent 4 years relearning the drums and kept playing with Def Leppard like nothing happened at all. John Fetterman, Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania and US Senate nominee, is a giant at 6 feet 9 inches. The Dutch East India Company was the most valuable company in human history, with it being worth almost 8 times as much as Apple is today. This shell found at a beach with barnacles on it that makes it look like an anatomically correct heart. Father faints when he meets his triplet babies for the first time in 1946. This was before the ultrasound was invented. The Italian bank called Credito Emiliano accepts Parmigiano Reggiano cheese as collateral for small business loans. While holding the cheese's insurance, the bank also stores and ages them in climate-controlled vaults. As long as the loan is active, the more the cheese ages, the more valuable it gets, much like interest-bearing accounts. The warehouse can store 440,000 wheels of cheese. A German artist has laid more than 70,000 stumbling stones in front of former houses of Jewish who were killed during the Holocaust, making them the world's largest decentralized monument to the genocide. Brickwork carefully planned out to make it look like they're falling down. Oldest footprints in North America show that people lived here 21,000 years ago. Valerie, graduate of a Kharkiv school, stands in her graduation dress on the ruins of her school destroyed by the Russian invasion. The carcass of a boreal raccoon, with fungus growing from the palm of its paw, like a bouquet of flowers from beyond the grave. I remember hearing a dementia nurse talking about how she dealt with the honey old lads who would proposition her in the care home. Dementia would make them lose their inhibitions and act in ways that they normally wouldn't. So when one of them asked if she fancied a shag, she'd say something like, "Definitely, you go ahead, I'll go freshen up, and I'll meet you in your room in 5 minutes. By the time they arrived, they'd forgotten why they were going there in the first place. No harm done, and the old boys still felt like they were lady killers. Mammatus clouds spotted in Oklahoma. They are pouch-like cloud formations and a rare example of clouds in sinking air. The receding waters of the Tigris in Iraq led to emergence of a 3,400-year-old city. They found a palace with a wall height of 6 meters, other buildings with multiple floors, clay tablets written in the cuneiform language, which they will prepare for translating messages in them, and many other things. Memorial for Corporal Seeding Gallipoli, an Ottoman soldier who lifted, loaded, and fired 3,215 kilo artillery rounds and sunk HMS Ocean. These rounds are usually loaded by a crane, but the artillery crew was dead, so he had to do it himself. The graves of a Catholic woman and her Protestant husband, who were not allowed to be buried together, Holland, 1888. The ringleader of Herculaneum was a Roman woman who died around 45 years of age near the ancient waterfront of Herculaneum during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. She was found surrounded by her gold jewelry and still wearing emerald and ruby rings on her left hand. Her jewelry was in perfect condition. This is Dobrev. He spent his life begging for money and donated all the money collected to charities, orphanages, churches, and monasteries. He himself lived on an €80 pension by the government and died peacefully at 103. This 900-year-old optical illusion in India with an elephant and a bull sharing a common head. In 2011, 2 Hampton Lumber employees decided to create an arboreal design that would evoke joy in every person who saw it and greet motorists as they drove through rural Oregon. They planted a mixture of larch, forming a circular face, and evergreen Douglas fir trees, forming eyes and a smiling mouth. The lovely Indian giant squirrel, with a head and body length of 25 to 50 centimeters, and a tail that is about the same or somewhat longer. Humans now only make up 38.5% of internet traffic. The other 61.5% is non-human. Bots, hacking tools, etc. In 1979, 16-year-old Brenda Ann Spencer was arrested after killing 2 people and wounding 8 children in California. When asked why she did it, her reply was, "I just don't like Mondays." When Bob Geldof read the story, he wrote the Boomtown Rats song "I Don't Like Mondays." In 1984, a regular at a pizzeria asked his waitress for help choosing his lottery numbers. He won. Came back and tipped her $3 million. I asked an AI to visually represent what it felt like to attend the 1893 World's Fair, the big debut of electric lights. These images are the result.